So we took something that was a mess and made it beautiful, which is kind of like looking at our lives. We come in here, we walk in here, and we're a mess. And if you do what you're supposed to do, then you walk out of here and you're not a mess. You might still be a little muddy every once in a while when the rain comes through, and you might get washed out, but and then when that sun comes out, you blossom. My name is Sarah, and I am a recent graduate of Lifeway Haven. I came from a good home. I was raised with good values. I was raised with rules, but I took the wrong turn. I made the mistakes. I had kids at a young age. I started, just being not what my parents want me to be. When you become a single mom, you realize there's struggles out there that, not everybody can understand unless they're in those shoes. And I started making even more wrong decisions because I was like, well, I need to support my kids. I need to take care of my kids. So that led me into lying and stealing. And when it started, it started small, but when you get away with something small and then it gets bigger and then you get a little bit away with a little bit more and you're like, oh, well then I got away with that, and it just escalates. It's like an avalanche. And so I wound up being, I was a liar and a thief. And it eventually brought me to where I went to jail. My family couldn't save me. I couldn't save myself. And so it led me into where I got caught one too many times and I went to jail, which that changed my life for the better because I wouldn't have stopped if I wouldn't have got caught. One day in the faith-based room, we had a night where these special people came in and said that they had this program opening up and called Lifeway Haven. And, I heard the story and I was like, okay, well, this is an option. But there was, a few things that I just didn't know if I could, I needed to figure out, could I make this commitment? And so I just had to put it in God's hands. Before I went to sleep, I had said, God, I need somewhere, I want to be able to put my kids' pictures on the walls. I want to be able to look at my kids. If I can't see them every day, I want to be able to look at them every day at least and just have a reminder, that why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I was like, okay, that's one thing I really want. It was important to me. And so I went to sleep that night and not thinking anything other than, what was my decision going to be? I need to make a decision next couple of days. And I had this dream about, I walked into this house in the country somewhere, and I walked into my room and I'm looking around and, there's a twin-size bed and there's stuff on the wall and, it's a really pretty place. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, in my dream, I'm exploring the place. I go outside and there's this wooden chair outside and I sit down and this dog comes up. I started petting the dog. The rabbit bounces up. I start petting the rabbit. And then this deer walks up and I'm like petting the deer, and a kangaroo bounces up and I'm petting the kangaroo, and I go back, and I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, okay, there's just no way. It's crazy. There's no way there might be a deer maybe in the woods. I've seen that. Those rabbits running through there's no way there's gonna be kangaroos, to pet. I found out the day before I came to Lifeway that they did have kangaroos out here that we could, learn to raise and stuff. And I was like, okay, God, that's kind of funny. And so I just like, well, maybe that's a coincidence. Then I get to Lifeway and me and Steve are working one day and I'm talking about my dream to him. And I told him my dream like 3 times that day. And that afternoon, he's like, that last time I tell him, he's like, I told him, I said, this dream, it wasn't perfect. I said, on the wall, there was something on the wall that I could put my kids' pictures on. I said, but it was a whiteboard with a cork board. I said, and that's what I had my kids' pictures on. I said, but that's not what you have in the room. And he stopped and he looked at me in this face that I knew he was serious. And he's like, Sarah, he said, nobody knew that. He said, but that's the first thing that we were going to have on the walls. And Melinda changed it. And so right then I knew that, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Within a couple weeks, I was comfortable enough to talk to people. Things come as, once you learn, what you can joke around about, what you can't. But I think, you got to give yourself at least a couple weeks to a month just to get into the routine of things, but you'll get there. I like the family environment. I've always been very family oriented. I love getting to know new people, meeting new faces, learning new things. The flower beds it was a good learning experience. There was slopes in the land we had to deal with. There was, it was a mess to begin with. When it would rain, it would always be muddy up there. And so we took something that was a mess and made it beautiful, which is kind of like looking at our lives. We come in here, we walk in here, and we're a mess. And if you do what you're supposed to do, then you walk out of here and you're not a mess. You might still be a little muddy every once in a while when the rain comes through, and you might get washed out, but and then when that sun comes out, you blossom. I got to come here and I got to learn things, and it was an environment that it was okay to make mistakes and not. You realize that you can make a mistake and not get ridiculed by it. You don't get called dumb or stupid. You just get, okay, well, that wasn't how to do that. Let's find another way to do it. Sometimes you find a better way, sometimes you don't, but you learn from that mistake and you learn how to fix the mistake and move on from it. And it becomes a learning experience. We just were blessed by people that wanted to help. If you're doing your best, people are going to want to help you. I found that out numerous times here through blessings that I would have never expected, and I never would have been able to have in my life if it wouldn't been for the volunteers and for generosity. Some relationships I made in prison with some of the volunteers that came in, they came in once and then they're gone. Other ones I met once I got to Lifeway, and you learn different experiences, different ways people deal with things, different ways that they've overcome their mistakes. And you might see somebody and think they have this great life. And then you hear their testimony and you're like, wow, you're not that much different than me. And, they might own a business, they might have a huge home, but, a couple years ago they could have been living on the streets and you'd have never known it, because you just got to put your best foot forward. And so I've learned that, you never know somebody's story until you've actually heard it from their mouth. And the ones that I've met through Lifeway, even to this day, still check on me, and they're still in my life. They haven't left me from prison. They know my story, and they're still there for me. Don't expect the job search process when you have a felony to be easy, because it is not. I put in over 100 applications. I put in 8 to 10 a day at the least, and I would get tons of no's. No, your background's not good enough. You got felonies. You got this. You've done this. You don't have a good enough credit report. And I'd have to keep taking those no's and just keep going. And I wanted to give up sometimes, and I just wanted to take, maybe just any job come to me. I was like, oh, I'll take it just so I can, graduate. I need this job. But I just had to keep putting in applications. I had, 17 people say yes to me and then turn around and tell me no. I would get turned down until I finally got the one. I mean, it was days and days of footwork and hours of sitting on the computer doing applications, but it paid off in the end. I got a job, and so I also had to look for a vehicle. God blessed me with a great vehicle through one of our connections through the volunteers that we joined with here at Lifeway. We just put the word out that we were going to start looking for a vehicle, and Melinda got a message saying, hey, we have this vehicle. Steve brought it out and showed it to me and said, would you be interested in this? And I'm like, it's too good to be true, looking at the pictures. And we went and looked at it and told the guy our story, and he knew my story, and it wound up being the exact price that I was looking for. at the exact time, and it wound up being a great vehicle, and I'm still driving it to this day. There was days that people thought I had it all together and I was doing great, and I might be in the room crying my eyes out wondering, why am I here? Why can't I just leave? Why can't I just go home? Why can't I be with my kids? And then you cry it out, and then you come out and you dust yourself off and you try again, because the next day might be great. You might have a wonderful day, but you're not gonna have all great days here. You're not gonna have horrible days here, but it's worth the work. If you put in the work, then you're gonna find out it's worth it. Anything that you sacrifice and any hard work, it pays off in the end. And I'm finding that out now. I've been graduated for almost 6 months now, and things still come into play, whether it's at work or at home, that things that I've learned here that I wouldn't be able to do, if I wouldn't have learned it here. I've been able to fix things in my home by myself that I never would have been able to do if I wouldn't have learned it from doing projects around here. So, I've changed fans out in my house. I've done electrical work, and before I wouldn't have known how to do that. I'd had to call somebody, and now I don't have to. I have more self-esteem now. I used to not think much of myself, but just seeing the love that no matter what I look like or what I'm going through, I'm still loved. I might fall, I might make a mistake, but I know that tomorrow might be better, and I just got to keep doing the next right thing. And so that's a different way that I've ever thought about. I don't think I've ever thought about that before, had that kind of thinking.